William J. Arnone from the National Academy of Social Insurance will present on strengthening Social Security in a time of population aging. Mr. Arnone is an independent consultant specializing in retirement policy and other voter political strategy. He serves as the chair of the board of directors of the National Academy of Social Insurance.
Thank you, Eric. And thanks also to the NAIC and your center for putting this symposium together. Timing is critical that we talk about issues like this as often as possible, so I'm really happy to be part of it. As Eric said, I chair the board of directors of a group called the National Academy of Social Insurance. I encourage you to go to our website, which is nasi.org, and to get a sense of what we do. But our mission is to promote a greater public understanding of why, as a country, do we have programs like Social Security, Medicare, workers' compensation, unemployment insurance. What do they do for their recipients, and what do they do for the country as a whole, and how critical are they to be understood and to be assessed on a regular basis? Now, I've devoted my entire life to Social Security in particular. I like to tell people I'm passionate about it. I hope I'm knowledgeable about it. And I pride myself on talking about it whenever I can. So if I'm at a party and I'm talking about the Social Security retirement age, or I'm at a restaurant and I'm talking about the cost of living adjustment, I can't stop talking about it. And I am a boomer, and I have a millennial daughter. I have one child. She's 21. She gets her first job, comes back with her first pay stub, and says, "Daddy, what is FICA?" So I said, boy, have I failed as a parent. So I told her. She says, well, I don't remember choosing to have that taken out of my pay. So I said, that's right, Allison. I said, if you had been given the choice, what would you have done? She said, I would have taken the money. You know, why let it go somewhere else? So this is the problem we have with Social Security, these programs, is how often they're not understood early enough in life so that people can appreciate the importance of them and have a better knowledge of it as they get closer to actually needing it. Tomorrow I'll talk more about Social Security in a financial planning context and how we overlook the different things that it does for people. But for today, I want to focus on a study that the Academy did in which we went to the American people and we said to them, look, Social Security has a long-term financing challenge. How would you fix it? And it's a fascinating study in that of the three parts. The first part, focus groups, those are considered to be traditional, and they're done quite frequently in public policy research. Surveys, in this case we used an electronic survey to gauge how Americans feel about Social Security. But the third element of it was an interactive exercise, trade-off analysis, where we forced respondents to come up with a recommended solution to Social Security that added up to helping to solve 100% of its long-term problem. So if you took this survey and you were asked what you wanted done, and it added up to 73%, you had to keep going until you got to 100%. So we forced trade-offs among the respondents. We conduct this in partnership with Greenwald and Associates, and they are really specialists in this type of methodology. First of all, some facts that we made sure everybody understood. Number one, for almost all Americans, and by the way, if you project into the future, we boomers, at least many of us had or have pensions. Generation X and millennials will not have pensions. They'll have 401k plans and other savings accounts, but they won't have a traditional defined benefit plan unless they work for the government. That's probably the only employment sector left that offers employees a defined benefit plan. So that's in the future. Today, Social Security is the foundation of retirement, even for Americans that do have pensions and savings. But look at the dollar figure. It's a modest benefit. It averages just under $1,300 per month. It keeps more than 22 million Americans out of poverty. And by the way, among the 22 million, 3 million are children who are getting survivor benefits. But in New York, that number, $1,300 a month, that doesn't keep you out of poverty. That puts you in poverty. So the geographic variations are huge, and yet some people think, boy, Social Security is a pretty generous benefit. It's It's not. And it was never meant to be. Does it have a problem? Yes, it has a problem. In the year 2033, the Social Security Trust Fund, which is an accumulation of money to pay future benefits above and beyond what you collect from FICA, from payroll taxes, that trust fund will be exhausted in the year 2033 based on what people consider to be reasonable assumptions. Here's where you get misinformation, where people will say, oh, you mean Social Security is going broke. You mean it's going to be bankrupt in 2033. That's not what this means. Because even when the trust funds are exhausted, there'll be enough money coming in from today's workers' contributions, FICA, to pay three-quarters of benefits. And that's not great. That would mean if we do nothing, everyone takes a 25% cut. Nobody thinks that's going to happen or should happen, but that's what we're on a trajectory to do under current assumptions. So we said to the respondents, in order to pay 100% of benefits over the next 75 years, 75 years, by the way, is the horizon that the Social Security trustees uses, a very generous horizon. Most private pension plans don't make projections over a 75-year period, and when you hear people talk about Social Security having a $13 to $18 trillion unfunded liability, which you might hear, they're using an infinite time horizon, which, when you think about it, no plans use infinite time horizons. Even 75 years is considered to be a lot. So what we said to people to take the survey, the status quo is unacceptable. Changes must be made in order to have 100% ability to pay benefits over the next 75 years. So that was the backdrop of the survey. We asked people some basic questions about Social Security. Number one, what would happen to you if there were no Social Security? And 70% said, I'd have to make a real sacrifice, either eat less, spend less on clothing, or change my housing. I mean, basic life necessities. People said that if Social Security were in the picture, they would have to make very, very serious sacrifices. So they also said we value Social Security enough that we don't mind paying for it because it helps us. 73% said it helps us directly. The same percentage say it helps our families. And 81% said even if it didn't help me, it provides security and stability to millions of Americans. So the basic understanding of the role of Social Security was pretty well validated in the survey. So we asked people this question: do you mind paying Social Security taxes because of what you just told us? And we dissected the data across different segments of the responding population. And the first is here, and that's by party affiliation. So while 81% of all Americans say, I don't mind paying into this system because of the value it provides, if you look at Democrats, they were the most likely to say this, 87%. Look at independents, 81%. By the way, that included Tea Party participants. And then, I don't want to portray a bias and say even Republicans, but the Republicans said, name another issue where you're going to get that kind of agreement across party lines. So it's really bipartisan agreement. 85% of Americans agree that Social Security benefits now are more important than ever to ensure that retirees have a dependable income. Why? Because of the diminishing pension income in this country. 86% say today it's not doing enough. It's not providing a high enough benefit for today's retirees. So 71% say we should consider increasing benefits to increase retirement security for today's working Americans. So again, a very strong consensus that the program needs improvement as opposed to reduction. So we asked people about their willingness to pay more. If it is critical that we preserve Social Security benefits, if you're a working American of all income levels, you can see if you add the last two columns, the 36 and the 40, there's some rounding going on. 77% say that increasing the taxes to finance the program are fine. And look at top earners who have less interest themselves in Social Security. 83% of them said paying more into the program is legitimate, and I would support it. We asked people across party lines, would they be willing to pay more? If more meaning if you're a working American today, would you be willing to pay more? And you can see again, Overall, 77% across party lines. More than two-thirds of Republican respondents say we would want to pay more. Now, I've had a problem with terminology. I don't like to call the Social Security contributions a payroll tax because I think that's it's a dedicated stream of revenue that we're all contributing because at some point we'll get something back. To me, that I don't like to call it a tax, but we use the word tax here. And even using that word, you can see the strong support, even among those who would say we are no tax political people. We don't want tax increases. Well, we'll make an exception for something like this because it's an unusual kind of tax. Then we asked, well, what if top earners had to pay more? Now, if you know, under current law, Social Security contributions are stopped at about $118,000. So we asked, what if higher income people, people making more than $118,000, which, by the way, today it's 6% of the American people. What if we asked them to pay more? And you can see across the line, again, even among those who don't like to see wealthy people paying more in taxes, 71% of Republicans said we would support that. So trade-off analysis. We use this to learn which Social Security changes Americans prefer and are willing to pay for. We provided a balanced picture of 12 policy changes. 4 of them were increases in revenue, 4 of them were cuts in benefits, and 4 were actual increases in benefits, meaning if you chose a benefit increase, then you would have to come up with more than the current shortfall in Social Security. You'd have to provide more to pay for the benefit increases. So even with that, I won't go into all the details here, but these are and you have a copy of my presentation. These are the specific items that we ask people about. If you have any questions about that, just feel free to, I'll be here 2 days. Track me down if you want to ask questions about it. The most favored package. I'm interested if you were taking this survey, if you would come up with this too. The most favored package was, number 1, don't continue to limit Social Security to 100. Then it was 117,000. Now it's about 118,000. In other words, gradually eliminate this cap on taxable wages. Number 2, let us all pay more. We're willing to pay more. Do it gradually and jack it up by 1% more so that over 20 years the rate people be paying in would be 7.2 as opposed to 6.2. Increase the cost of living adjustment. The cost of living adjustment is the annual inflation protection that's built into Social Security. The consensus was this does not adequately reflect older people's consumption patterns. We need a special cost of living adjustments for older people. It'll be a higher cost of living, and we're okay with that. And finally, for lifetime low-wage earners, they wanted to raise the minimum benefit. So they would have a less chance of falling into poverty. These changes, by the way, when you added them up, would do better than needed. They would actually eliminate 113% of the long-term financing gap projected by the trustees. If you use the assumptions in the most recent trustees report, it's about 107%. And this is preferred over the status quo by 7 in 10 Americans. We provided a breakdown of the respondents based on their age, their income, and their party affiliation. And you can see they're all pretty close to that 71% total. The group that, oddly enough, had the least support were people whose income was under $35,000 and those who were registered as Republicans. And even that was 68%. So that's a pretty good percentage. Trade-off analysis also shows how individual policy changes affect appeal. So even though we forced a package to be the result, we looked at individual items to see which ones people really liked and which ones people really didn't like. Strong positive appeals are get rid of that tax cap, gradually raise the tax rate. But this was an important one because this is the one that is the most likely to be discussed in Congress and in this political season, and that is possibly raising the retirement age beyond the current age, which is going to go up to 67, which, by the way, when I tell people it's going up to 67, they go, you mean that's a proposal, right? People don't know. That's passed. That's law. It's being done gradually, but that's what was done in the 1983 amendments. People don't want that raised, and people definitely want the cost of living adjustment to be better. Negative appeals is not lifting the tax cap, not increasing the tax rate, raising retirement age as high as age 70, or lowering the COLA, which, by the way, the President Obama's administration proposed lowering the COLA a couple of years ago, and it was not enacted. But that was something that, again, both Republicans and Democrats are capable of proposing negative changes to Social Security. This takes you through the different options. You can have a sense of the breakdown based on each of the individual proposals. You can see gradually raising the tax rate was the highest one in terms of positive reaction. Reducing the COLA got the worst amount of support. We then asked people, even though you have strong support for this program, what do you think about its future? And here again, if you ask the average millennial, my sense is the answer will be, well, I know it's there for my parents, and it was there for my grandparents. It's probably not going to be there for me. And that's what we hear across the board. And that's where Social Security is most vulnerable for those who believe it won't be there. When people of my daughter's generation, her friends ask me, are we going to have Social Security for us? My answer is, if you want it, you've got to fight for it. This is not a program that's going to just be there without challenge. So it's really a challenge for them to focus on it. So if you look today, how confident are you in the future of the Social Security system? If you're getting Social Security, 38% are confident, 62% are not. Those not yet receiving Social Security, 32% are confident, 68% are not. And if you were to segment it down to different generations, you would find it's even the lowest support. We asked people, what about this shortfall? Would you say it's a crisis or significant problem? 70% going into the survey said it's a crisis. And 30% said it's either manageable or it's really not a problem. After they looked at the solutions that were offered and came up with a package, notice the dramatic change. 33% said, you know what, it's manageable. We just showed you it's manageable. We came up with the way to manage it. And 67%, 67% is manageable, 33% still thought it was a crisis. I don't want to minimize that, but they didn't think it was as much of a crisis. In focus groups, Americans were concerned about benefits being too low. In the survey, Americans want to pay more. And in trade-off analysis, the preferred package would do. This is really a repeat of what I talked about earlier. The value of facts. If there's one thing we stand for at the Academy is people are entitled to their own opinions, but they are not entitled to their own facts. Facts are objective. We can't deal with misinformation. And our mantra is better information could improve public knowledge about and confidence in Social Security, and that when you ask the American people to, as adults, come up and make hard choices, they respond with a remarkably solid plan across political, generational, and income lines, not only to support Social Security, but to come up with hard choices and changes in the program. So we're very happy with the survey. I hope, for those of you who hadn't heard of it before, you dig into it. It's on our website. And spread the word that when the American people are asked what to do, they have an answer. Now, the question is, and this is a presidential election, what do we expect the candidates to say? And I think it's going to be fascinating to see to what extent the candidates are as responsible as the American people are in a willingness to address it with specificity and in a way that makes sense. If I had a bet, my bet is that the candidates will say something like, there are a lot of interesting options on the table. Let's form a commission in order to deal with it. That's about the best, I think that's about the best that you're going to see. I hope I'm wrong on that, and we hope to, as the Academy begins to issue more reports, we hope we can challenge elected officials to step up to the plate and do what the American people are willing to do. So do we want to have questions now or not enough time? Sure. I mean, if anybody has questions about this one, it's a lot to digest. But if not now, we'll be here for more time. Nobody? Yes. Yeah. How were they surveyed? It was an online survey, so they had to go on a website, and it was a cross-section of American people. I think it's about a 2,000 respondent population, so I think there's a margin of error of a couple of points, but it was web-based. And the focus groups were a supplement. Those obviously were in-person focus groups. Yes? The minimum wage?
Yeah. Will that cause more inflows into the system and help balance
Yeah, whatever can be done to elevate wages always helps Social Security. Whatever can be done to reduce unemployment always helps Social Security. And by the way, it helps in the sense that it brings more revenues in now, but it also will increase benefits later. So yeah, obviously. Okay, no more questions? Yes, all the way back there. Yes. Yes. Yeah, the question is, the way Social Security operates now, that the benefit you get is has a relationship to the dollars you put in. So the question is, if we eliminate the cap, is that a complete net increase? The answer is no, because there will be higher benefits down the line for higher income people who put more in. But the Social Security formula is such that you get the lowest return on your contributions the more income you make. And we adjusted that return a little bit lower so that there wasn't a huge benefit increase. But yes, there was a benefit increase. Okay.